Hi, and welcome back. In this video, we're going to look at a very important concept in math, and it is a new notes page. If you recall the things we've learned so far, we've learned about digits and units, ones, tens, hundreds, thousands. We've learned about word expanded form and expanded notation and standard form. We have practiced those, and we have compared numbers using greater than, less than. We've done a lot of things in this chapter. And this lesson is going to be just as important. It is about rounding numbers. So let's go ahead and section off the page since it is a notes page. You just draw those two lines, leave yourself some space at top and bottom, and then make a margin section right here. Okay. And this one is going to be about rounding numbers. And I want to start off with the definition of the word estimate or estimate, depending on whether you're using it as a noun or a verb. If you're using it as a verb, you would pronounce it estimate. It's an action. If you're using it as a noun, it is an estimate, a thing. And an estimate is an approximation of an amount or an answer. I'll say an amount based on rounded numbers. And I'm going to give you an example of what I mean. And to do this, I'm going to use money. Now, I know that we have not studied decimals yet, but because I'm teaching adult learners, I'm pretty sure that you've dealt with money in your lifetime. So let's relate this to something that you already know about, and that would be money. And let's say that I am shopping for back to school, or maybe I'm taking a math class and I need some supplies. So I go to the store and I see that they have notebooks, and I am not an artist, so bear with me. They have notebooks that cost $4.95. And let's put a dollar sign so we know that we're dealing with money. And then I'm going to need some highlighters, and those are going to be $2.75 each. And then I'm going to need maybe a book bag that I cannot draw, but you get the idea. There's my book bag that cost $12.89. And this is enough for what I'm doing. So I go to the store and I see these things on the shelf, and I'm going to pick them up. I need to decide how much approximately each one costs. So if you are looking at the notebook, the $4.95, rather than have to keep track of that $4.95, I would say that one notebook is approximately $5, right? $4.95, that's only a nickel away from $5. Okay, let's say that I want to buy one bag. and that's $12.89, so I'm going to say that that's approximately $13. And you see the squiggly equal sign? That means that rounding has occurred. So if you see that squiggly equals, that is telling me that it's not an exact answer, it's an estimate. And then the highlighters, maybe I want two of those, a blue and a pink. So I'm going to say 2 highlighters, not highlighters. Clearly spelling is not my thing. Okay, 2 highlighters. Okay, one of them is $2.75, so I'm going to say that that's about $3. And another about $3. So 2 highlighters are approximately $6. So if I buy one of each item, let's do an estimate of what I would spend. So I have 5 plus 13 plus 6. So that is an estimate. It's not an exact answer of what? $24, about $24. And I got that by adding up those numbers. 5 plus 13 is 18, and 18 plus 6 is 24. So this would be the estimate. The other prices are exact prices. So this is the exact price of the bag, the exact price of one highlighter, and the exact price of one notebook. So those are different values than an estimate. And I'm going to show you how to follow the rounding rule to get accurate estimates. But first you need to understand what an estimate represents. An estimate is an approximation of an amount based on rounded numbers. Okay, let's move to another example. This is really just, I'm having you to think through these with me. So let's section off our page and see what we have here. Here's a question for you for the margin. And let me write it where you can actually read it. Is 16 closer to 10 or 20? And to do this one, we can use a number line. This is one way to do it. So let's draw a number line. We know that we have 10 and 20 for comparison. So let's put the numbers in the middle. We know that between 10 and 20, halfway would be 15. Then we would have 16, 17, 18, and pretend those are equal slots. Going this way, I would have 14, 13, 12, 11, and then 10. So the number 16, is it closer to 10? Or is it closer to 20? Well, let's see. If we look at the spaces between 16 and 20, there are 1, 2, 3, 4. So it is 4 spaces away from 20. If we look at the numbers below 16 toward 10, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces on this side. So I would say, and hopefully you would too, that it's closer to 20. I would say that 16 is closer to 20. That's an estimate. It's not, 16 is the exact number. 20 would be the estimate. It's the nearest 10 that we could go to. Okay. One more thing I want to show you, and that is the actual rounding rule. I struggled with rounding in school. I think the reason I didn't really understand it to begin with, and then I became afraid of it because I knew I didn't understand it and I needed to do it. I knew it was important. And so the more I didn't understand it, the more scary it became. So hopefully this will help you understand the rounding rule. And then we will be practicing this a lot. And rather than have you write out the rounding rule, I'm going to have you draw a picture. So I want you to draw a heel. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just get close. Something like that. And you can pause the video if you need to. On the top of the heel, I want you to put the number 5, and then 6, 7, 8, and 9. So those digits 5 to 9 are going to go on the right side of the heel. And I'm highlighting it just so you can see it. This is going to be the roundup side. So let's go ahead and put that there. Then the other digits, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0 are going to be on the left side, and we'll call this the stay the same. Now, a lot of teachers call it the round down side. I do not, because I don't want you to think of subtraction. But you absolutely can call it that if that makes sense to you. I'm just going to call it the stay the same side. And I know this makes no sense at the moment, but just bear with me and it will. And then there's one more thing that we need to do, and that is to ask the neighbor. So I'm going to put that under the heel to remind me to ask the neighbor. So if you can store a picture like this in your mind, you will be able to do the rounding rule. And I'm going to take off a little bit of excess because I'm going to copy and paste that in just a second. So I'm going to go ahead even and highlight under here to ask the neighbor. And I'm going to copy this right now so I'll have it when I go to the textbook. Let's just make a copy. Okay. So here's how it works. I want us to do a practice question. I want us to round, and I don't know why I'm doing that. This is a sentence, so it needs to start with a capital letter. Round 169 to the nearest 100. So one way to do it is to look at a number line. Let me draw one right here. So sketch yourself a number line. 169, so 100 is the low end. The next 100 would be 200. Halfway between those is 150, and 169 is closer to 200. So I can tell you here that the 169 is going to round to 200. That is one way to do this problem. You can absolutely draw a number line. But here is the method using the rounding rule. So what you do, you write the number you're interested in. So 169 is our number. And then you underline the place that it's telling you to round to the nearest 100. So let's underline the hundreds place. And then you draw an arrow back to the neighbor. We're going to ask the neighbor what to do. Round to the nearest 100. I underline the hundreds place. Okay. And then you ask the neighbor. You look back to the place before the hundreds place. And that's the tens place. The 6 is in the tens place. So then you go up here to your number hill, the thing that we drew, and I'm going to circle the neighbor. There's the neighbor. Let me make it a little darker. There's my neighbor. And the neighbor's the one that tells you what to do. So the neighbor says to do what? The neighbor's telling me to round up. So that means that 169 would become closer to, the underlined place grows by 1. We round it up 1. And then we round off the ends. So I increased, I rounded up 1. And then I rounded off the ends. And I know this is not easy to understand. We are going to practice this a lot. And if you have questions, please talk with your teacher. So the neighbor is the 6. And the neighbor's the one that tells me what to do. All right, let's summarize this page and then we will move to practice. I talked about doing this, but I didn't really tell you why we do this. Rounding numbers allows us to work with simpler numbers. And let me just remind you what I mean here. Simpler numbers. Let me just scroll back up here. Remember this? It was a lot easier for me to add those numbers than these numbers. Okay. So it allows us to work with simpler numbers to make estimates. The rounding rule makes sure we all round the same way. Can you imagine if you rounded the way you wanted to and I rounded the way I wanted to? We would never have answers that agree. So there must be a rule that tells us how it is to be done.